So when you look at a technology like iPhone, what does it do? Or what it did at the time of its conception? It made, number one, mobile telephone calls, number two, internet surfing, number three, emailing, number four, videography, number five, camera, everything integrated. So the question that these guys, Steve Jobs, asked, for instance, is that, can I have a device that enables me to send messages, write emails, make videos, do internet, Twitter, and take photographs, among other things, of course going to the stock market and all this. So possible with one single device. So with this question, he was taking on to 5 different industries. So all these solutions were there. But the question he asked is that, the problem that he asked, the central problem that he asked is that, what is the problem? And the question was, can I make a device to make all these possibilities possible? That's the first question, right? So when you have a solution, we as an inventor, or we as a discoverer, or as a scientist, or as a grad student, we are so obsessed with our own discovery that we tend to forget that it might be completely useless. Right? It might be completely useless from the point of view of application. Right? It might be a very fundamental scientific discovery, as Craig was mentioning. So you ask this question first, that what is the problem that this discovery will solve? Then the next question that you ask is, who is having the problem? Who has this problem? So that defines your marketplace, because you need to have a market. Otherwise, you don't have your product, or you don't have your startup company for that matter, right? So you ask a question that, who is having this problem? So again, I'll go back to this iPhone point of view, and I'll ask, like, who will be needing this device that will enable me to do emails, Twitter, photography, videography, Skype, everything at one go? So you know exactly your market when you have answer to this question. So that's how you define your market. Now, in the matter of market, there is, so if you are interested in these type of things, there is a very beautiful book by Guy Kawasaki, The Art of the Start. So The Art of the Start by Guy Kawasaki is a very well-known serial entrepreneur. So Craig has talked about venture capitalists, about angel investors and all. So there are some guys who have this background of starting companies after companies. So Guy Kawasaki is one of them from one of the blue states, what Craig had been talking about. So,
where all the intellectuals are. Tiny little blue islands in the Red Sea after the Trump election, right? Anyway, that's another story. Keep going.
So Guy Kawasaki is Art of the Start, where he writes very beautifully, very eloquently, all the questions that I'm also talking about, right? So to enhance your understanding. So this leads to the second question, like, yeah, who has the problem? So you define your market space. Now you need to be specific as possible with your answers to the questions, because as inventor or as a discoverer, you tend to be more biased to give more positive answers to these questions rather than they are. So a good thing for, if you are a guy, for example, as a discoverer, it's best to ask your wife or your girlfriend, because women tend to be a little bit more pragmatic and careful, so they can quash that one out, so you have a reality check, right? And so that's...
Can I just expand on one point? So that's well taken. That's going to vary with the culture to culture, right? But the bottom line is that you want as much input from as many different groups as you possibly can, because then you'll understand more about yourself and what you're doing and your product, but also you'll understand the potential market there. It's really crucial. Okay.
Yeah. So this is the stage where you are also reaching out for your market space survey, as he is saying, right? So you may want to have a questionnaire, and you may want to check out, test your waters, so to speak, that whether this idea of your market space is indeed viable or not. Whether they're viable or whether they're not viable. So this is something which you would like to test out. Now, there is a very nice idea, so one comes across And then one feels that this idea is actually not that novel. It's already out there in some form or the other. So how to test that? There are possibilities to test that as well. So there is another very nice thesis on this. It's called the Blue Ocean Strategy. So it's by, I think by Chan, so from Harvard University, and where they tested out on the Blue Ocean Strategy. So what is a blue ocean and what is a red ocean? Red ocean is somewhere where you have a lot of competition. So that means it's really bloody, so to speak. I mean, it's full of blood. So you don't want to enter into a red ocean. So you want to have certain parameters of your product. So I'm talking now of the productization. So you have certain aspects of your product that makes competition irrelevant. So you have to have certain aspects. So you need to ask yourself then that about the competition, or what are the defining points of my discovery for which I have competitors, right? So this brings you to a third answer: how is the problem solved? You may think of a fantastic, incredible problem. You can lose your sleep overnights after having discovered this problem. But then you may realize there are folks who are doing this, and they're doing this on a large scale. So your question maybe has been solved. So this third question is very important. So where you ask, how is the problem solved? So there also you go out and reach out and find solutions to your existing questionnaire or to your existing question. And then one of the classical ways we do things is we look at the price-value equilibrium. So what is this price-value equilibrium? Is basically you have got a price for a certain object or certain invention or your business, and you are offering value to that, right? So there is an equilibrium between them. So there comes the strategic pricing in play. So most of the time we overprice things for the value we get, or sometimes we underprice things for the value we get. So these are the things where you need to study your competitor landscape or your existing market landscape, and from there you try to find out, this is again through market survey, through research, where you find your benchmarking competitors and your benchmarking products, and then you say, okay, these are the pointers. Now pointers are basically different parameters which you can actually estimate by being statistical surveys. So that means what is the price of the product, what is the value that this product is offering, what is the ease of the product, what is the concept of the product, right? So in this matter, for example, you can make like one of the example I would like to give is Cirque du Soleil. So Cirque du Soleil is a circus is a ring, and they bring in entertainment and variety show. They brought in all these things very much together. So in the West, for example, it happened at a time when both the popularity of the circus as well as the popularity of the variety show, both were going down. People were not attracted towards these things. So what Cirque du Soleil did, they found a blue ocean in this. They saw that, okay, it means that there is a decline, sharp decline in circus going people, the kids, and in variety going people, that's the adults. So can we define, for example, by reducing the funniness or the improbability of a circus with the heaviness or a little bit more adult humor in the variety show, and bring it in an equilibrium so that we have a new concept. And that's how, so by, you see, they're playing with the parameters, right? And with this, they came up with an optimum parameter. So that was basically your Cirque du Soleil, and it did fantastic. It's a phenomenal thing. So there are examples, for example, other examples like yellowtail wine and things like that. I'll not get into it, but the simple idea is that you try to find the parameters that controls your industry. You find the existing heights which your industry uses for the existing product. Then you play with these parameters. If it is high on your industry, existing product, you may want to get it low. If it is low in your industry, you may want to get it high. So these are all strategic things by which you try to answer to the question, how is the problem solved, right? So this is your third question. Then the fourth question, by doing all these parameterization, is your unique selling proposition. That is number 4, how do I do it better? So you ask this question, how do I do it better? So that means that you have done all your homework, you have done all your studies. Now you want to ask that, okay, I am now going to launch my startup, or I am now going to launch my company. So how can I do it in a better fashion, right? So that I am not killed by the large sharks of the company, of my market space, and I am able to play in a blue ocean. I can reap benefits. Now, these are the frameworks. This is like a funnel framework. That's how I would like to put it. So you start with a lot of storming of ideas. You can do this, I think you can do this, for example, in groups of 5 or 4, and there your local geopolitical milieu becomes very important, because that should be relevant. For example, a product that is possible to be thought of in Mohanpur may be completely irrelevant in Atlanta, right? And it's exactly the other way around. So a product in Atlanta may not find any market space in Mohanpur, because the demands are very different, right? So you do it keeping the local geopolitical milieu, the questions in mind, and then you ask the question, for example, first, what is the problem? You may want to write it down. So what is the problem? Second, who has the problem? Third, how is the problem solved? And fourth, how do I do it better? So in this framework, you can then go ahead, and of course, there are issues of financial aspects, like you have to do the cash flow. You have to see that you manage your cash flow. You have to see that you have your venture capitalists, or as Craig very nicely pointed out, that you have several stages in which you do your startup. So for example, first are your friends and fools. So these are your first investors. So you ask your friends and your fools. So you tell them that, okay, I have got this idea, will you invest? If they are your friends, most likely they will, and if they are fools, they will also invest, right? So you go for them, but then after friends and fools, you have the more serious one, the financiers. They are not that fool. So they will ask you to come up with a business plan. And the business plan, you can write it along this framework, putting in your financial aspect, which I have no expertise, but you can consult a tax consultant or a cash consultant who can do it for you. So usually with the finance, it is like this. They call it a J curve. That is what you have got. So what is a J curve? That means initially from your 0 level, so from your starting point up to, depending on your nature of your business, it will go down. So your cash flow will be negative. Then it will take off. But the difficulty is that you don't know if you are going to have a J or if you are going to have an L, right? So you never know that. So that might lead to a crash scenario. But usually you have a J, so successful businesses have a J, and they have different incubation periods depending on the nature of the business, right? So these are the things that you may want to keep in mind when you are going for your business or for your startup. Now, the financier, how to approach financiers. For example, Craig already mentioned it, I'll just repeat it. So how to approach. So in the Indian context, you can find different types of financiers. I'm not very familiar with it, but you can look it up. So basically, you have investors, so which are like FICCI does a lot of investment, Federation of Indian Chambers and Commerce and Industries. So FICCI, DST, Millennium Alliance is there. That is also doing a lot of programs regularly. They do it in Kolkata itself. So you can approach them, and they are very much willing to mentor you or to school you in that matter. So you also have risk capital investments. Those are there. You can Google it up and you can find them. So then you have, of course, these are your formal financiers. You have your informal financiers who may want to put money into your business, which are, as Craig mentioned, the business angels or the investment angels, so or angel investors. So these angel investors, they would like to put your money in their money in your business, and they expect a return, or they expect an option in your company, or they expect a stock in your company, so or they expect a share. So as Craig was mentioning, right? So you have to talk this out, but all these things will be done the first step will be a non-disclosure agreement. So with your potential clients. So I think Craig mentioned that. So these are the technicalities. So you need to have your lawyers, and they will do the non-disclosure agreement, and they will do it on your behalf. Then you have your angel investors. In the next step, the more formal step, when you have done so far, you go for the venture capitalists, as you were saying, right? And so you go for the VCs, and the venture capitalists will then take your call further, and they will give you mentoring, as well as they will give you proper rigorous support with a structural dictate on your constitution of the company, right? So these are the things, and then finally you go to the stock and all. So then you finally float your company, and if you are afloat for quite some time, then you are in fact making profit, and you are able to turn it from a one-man show to a few-man show to a big company, right? So this is more or less the overall framework which I wanted to give in addition to Craig. So I think if Craig, you want to give some more inputs?
That was excellent, largely complementary to my points, but I didn't mention the NDA, non-disclosure agreement. So all the way through this process, as soon as you start working with collaborators outside your university, you often need, even at that early stage, you often want to sign an NDA, non-disclosure agreement, which basically says that you can't, it can have different terms, but it essentially says that you can't talk about the work of the company. You as the academics cannot talk about any research inside the company. Obviously, that would not be appropriate. And the company has to, usually set up also that the company doesn't talk about your work in the academic lab, because you may want to be protecting it. You know, you may not be getting posters at talks and meetings. So protection starts early. And there's a general rule in most places, not sure about India, but, well, yeah, I guess worldwide. So that's, and we mentioned this, that if you are going to do take a patent out on something, don't publish. Do the patent first. The patent is not hard to do. Again, the lawyer will write it with your help, with the grad students and the professor's help. And the patent will be filed. So the minute, literally the minute, so the day, the hour, and the minute that the patent is filed, then you are free to publish. So there's two systems worldwide. There's the USPTO, United States Patent and Trademark Office. So they give you, I forget which is which now, but one of them, either that or the International Patent Cooperative Treaty Organization. They have offices around. The main one's in Munich, Germany. So that's all the other countries. And one of those gives you a year to publish. It gives you a year after you publish to patent. But the United States, I think, you lose your rights in the U.S. if you disclose publicly. Okay, so public disclosure is, this might not be public disclosure, say in a classroom meeting with friends, but if you do a poster or a talk at a meeting, that's public disclosure. And that's got to be, you've got to share that with the patent attorney and everybody else, essentially. As everybody has to know what's going on, because it will involve the legality of the patent. And a patent is nullified, and if a patent is, the patent's nullified if you publicly disclose too soon. Okay, and then if a patent's nullified, who's interested in licensing it? No company will be interested in buying a patent for use, because it's out already. It means there's no, the vital product, potential product, it's already out. It's public domain, that's the term. And that means anybody can do what they want with your chemistry. So you need to be very careful about the timing of your publication versus filing the patent. So we've covered a number of things.
I think Mala has a question.
Yeah, already.
Very nice, thank you. I was talking to a company person recently. So what he said is some big companies, especially, if actually they also advise not to patent if it is really very, has great potential, because once you patent, then that is also in public domain, and then people can modify a little bit, and then they can, again produce in their own way.
That's right.
So what do you think about that?
Yeah. So you wanted to take that?
Yeah, yeah.
Go
So
ahead.
I'd like to take that because we discussed this earlier. So the thing is, these are issues like it's absolutely relevant for big companies, because the big companies, they want to have the complete hold of your work and they want to have the monopoly. So usually, or it happens like that, that very famous blockbuster products, they tend to be not protected, patent protected. They are the trade secrets.
Trade secrets.
So
Yes.
that's what they want to do. So they want you to bind into an NDA, so non-disclosure agreement. Then they would like to wrap your discovery up. They will scoop the discovery in their inner R&D, and they will develop that completely in-house, so that only few core people who are bound by legal agreements that they cannot disclose it, that will be transferred into the trade secret of the company. So that's another trend which is operating, for example, in the big companies. So they have the trade secrets and people don't talk about it. So that's another way. Of course, you are absolutely right. So when you say that you do a patent and then you are making it open source in a way, right? And there are modifications and there are problems in certain parts of the world where you have this patent war going on, and even massive big companies, they have problems with kind of negative garage ventures, because how many garages of chemical industries you can close down? So you are limited. Yeah, so that's the
Yeah, you have no protection if it's just proprietary technology, trade secrets. Yeah, so that's very common. I think the circumstances that dictate whether a company, whether it's a startup, a mid-size or a big company, will patent or not, or keep it as trade secret. I think there's a number of things that impact that, but that's certainly a way to go, as Sean will articulate nicely. So I think the bottom line is that you need to go slowly, except you can't if you've got hot technology you want to get into the market. But you want to go slowly in the sense that you want to think through everything, you want to talk to a lot of smart people, like not just the scientists, we all know a lot. Talk to business people under secrecy, NDA, non-disclosure agreement. Sometimes you bring in consultants. So let's say you're looking at photochromic or electrochromic materials. It could be a technique too, right? You know, X-ray refraction, for example. You might have an idea of making a better tech or something else. So often, whatever it is, you need to you want to talk to a number of experts under secrecy, okay, NDA. And then you'll be in a strong position to decide what you want to do going forward. Starting talking to companies and ultimately getting them interested in licensing.
So I can add a little bit more to that. So basically the company will start with an NDA or non-disclosure agreement, and then if your collaboration is going on well with the company, then they will go for a joint disclosure agreement. That can be even longer period of time, and that's when you have really, like, you are working as a partner of the company, and they protect your interest and you protect their interest. So first NDA, then JDA, and then it goes on.
Yes.
Can the investors ask for, can the inventors ask for money while dealing with a secret, trade secret?
Can the investors ask for?
The inventors, can they ask for we have licensing fee. So in a trade secret, the only way they're protecting the intellectual property is by non-disclosure agreement. So how can they benefit financially from a trade secret?
No, that depends on the agreement that you have got between the company and the PI. The PI will ask for grant, for example, or consultancy or whatever. So this will be on the negotiable terms, and this is completely dependent, and you do it usually with a lawyer. So depending on that, what you have got.
Both sides have their lawyers.
Yeah, Anuj.
So you said the 5 questions that you gave, in those you said that if you are doing some project and some other company on a large scale is doing the same thing, then why would anybody want to invest on this thing? And we are entering in the competition, which is, as you explained, not a blue ocean, it is already a red ocean. So we are entering in that thing. So if someone would want to invest, they will invest on the company which is doing it on a large scale. Why would they choose this?
Exactly. So basically, that's the whole point of this exercise, is that you want to avoid the red ocean. So before you go into your even fooling your fools and friends, you want to be sure that you have a viable business plan. So that means the moment when you see that there are solutions available or that it is being done in the marketplace, you don't have a proper question. So you turn back to the feedback loop and you again ask from the scratch and ask what is the problem, right? So you see, for example, if there were an iPhone at the beginning, then the product does not make sense. So those are also known as a Me Too product. So you have a lot of iPhones, these are Me Too iPhones. They never make it, they never made it, right? So they are there, but they never made it. So you don't want a Me Too product. That means I can also do this. You don't want that. So you want something unique, you want to have a niche area, and you want to basically have a clear definition of your product. So the first question is very, very important. That is, what is the problem? Because if your problem is correct, then all the answers to the subsequent questions, subsequent 4 questions, will give you a consistent picture that will make it viable. But there is one very important thing I would like to tell in the context of startups, is that nothing is better than doing the true, real experiment. That means you have to do it. Because if you don't do it, you never know. On paper, everything looks good, but a perfect thing on paper